9:05 on a Friday. That means it's time for our Feature Friday guest in studio, and it is a man who needs no introduction in this town. He is John Holt, Fox 4. You watch him on a nightly basis. John, what's happening, my man?
Well, just taking the bitter with the sweet this morning.
Yeah.
Obviously, Blue October is now an October of blues for us. But you know what? What a great run for the Royals. 86 wins after a 106-season loss. They really... Every game in the of course, they took care of Baltimore. Nobody thought they'd do that.
Yep.
And then every game of the ALDS was, they never got blown out. They were in every game. Mm-hmm. Just goes to show you what great pitching can do. The offense struggled a bit, but the Yankees have good pitching. So it is what it is. Would love to have seen them push the Yankees to the brink and go back to the Bronx on Saturday night.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah, it would have been great. But, just was, you and I were talking here before we came on air. It just reminded me so much of 14 and 15 and the joy this town has when a baseball team does well.
And it's just different because you kind of slog through 6 months, 162 games, and baseball is a long season. But the drama of October, every pitch, every at-bat, counting down the outs, it's so unique when it comes to just, as sports fans, which you are and I am, it's so unique when you compare it to football or basketball or anything else where you're living and dying by every pitch.
So true. And the one thing about the postseason is the Royals can stand up to the Yankees. Mm-hmm. And we saw this back in 14 and 15 when nobody expected the Royals to go as far as they did. I had a chance to do a quick interview with Denny Matthews, the longtime Hall of Fame voice of the Royals. And he said, you get to the postseason, it's parity. It's parity.
Yeah. Who's got the hot hand,
that term.
too?
It's not parity in baseball during the season. Let's face it. There's no salary cap.
Yeah.
The rich get richer. They have the revenue sharing, so on and so forth. But let's face it. The Royals payroll versus the $300 million Yankee payroll, you can't compare. And yet in the playoffs, the adrenaline is flowing. These guys are out there playing for glory, and it evens the playing field. And I think Denny's right. Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it sort of evens the playing field a bit. And in the end, usually, but look at the Yankees. They're trying to get back to the World Series for the first time since what?
Yeah.
09?
Yeah, they've won it in 09. They've got one World Series the last 25 years, and it's 09.
So, and the Royals have been twice in 14 and 15, and we're angling for, another opportunity 9 years later. So I tend to agree that maybe once you get to the postseason, the emotion takes over, the fans are louder, and every pitch matters, like you said.
Well, and as I said to you, you were out there at the K 2 nights ago, right?
Right.
So you were there 2 nights ago, and I think I saw you share some photos on social media of 10 years ago to today, and I'm like, John Holt hasn't aged one bit in that 10-year stretch. It's amazing. These TV guys, they look like $1 million.
The lighting and the makeup get better. That's what I always tell people. But and I sit next to very young co-anchors. So, I'm the old guy. But it's been a great run. I got to tell you, when they won in 15, we all thought the next year, 16, they were going to repeat, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Ventura tragedy and things went down from there. But so you never know. You just embrace it. You never know when you're going to get back. Even Super Bowls. I've had a chance. I've been very fortunate to cover Super Bowls. And you're down on the field, the confetti's flying. You think, man, I'm going to embrace this because you never know when you'll get back. Well, the Chiefs have made that look easy, right? Mm-hmm. And now going for the three-peat. So, but it's fun. I think fans feel the same way we do, and that is embrace it, enjoy it, and let's get through the hot stove league and get back to spring training and go at it again.
It's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Like, mid-February comes around and you're sitting there and you're like, wow, it's baseball season, basically. Now, it's great, too, when you see guys like George Brett, always there, embracing this team, getting interviewed, obviously, during the broadcasts. You see Patrick Mahomes out at the games. You see Andy Reid there last night. What makes that unique for Kansas City to have guys like that always there during these big moments?
Well, I think Kansas City is small. It's not like New York City or Los Angeles or some of the other major markets where a guy like Patrick Mahomes, he's an investor, he's a part owner, and most of the country probably didn't know that until they were clued in by the broadcast at TBS. Bob Costas back in town, so.
Rough series for Bob, by the way. I gotta say. That's just
a lot of X.
A lot of tough calls for Bob. Vinny Pasquantino, single up the middle. Wait, it's caught. Oh,
it's caught. Oops.
Oh, whoops. Sorry about that.
Maybe he was hoping.
Yeah.
Although most people thought he was doing the Yankee Network broadcast.
I know. It was weird.
But and Andy Reid, I do think the coaches, first of all, I think being the Truman Sports Complex together, they share that turf. And so I think there tends to be a feeling of support. We've seen Royals on the sidelines at Chiefs games. We've seen Chiefs players at Royals games. I think there's that synergy and that camaraderie of professional players who know how hard it is to get to the pinnacle, right, to the top. And so they share that, and the competition, they share that. But I think this is a small enough market, too, where a lot of these players and get to know each other in their neighborhoods, their families, the ones who stay in town. And so that, I think, is unique to this market.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two big major sports here. Nothing against Sporting KC, but the two major players in this town are the Chiefs and the Royals.
And really, let's be honest, too, unless your market doesn't have NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, or NHL, soccer is going to be tertiary to the major professional sports, and that's what you've got here as well.
I think so, and the Current are quite they're quite the sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, to see this town and the ownership there build a stadium on the riverfront, which I think is really, the development of the riverfront is fun to see finally after all these years. Build a stadium and have the fans excited about women's soccer. Sporting KC has a soccer-only stadium now. It has for some time. So there is support for soccer, but when you look at the TV ratings, the Royals and the Chiefs will always be king.
Absolutely.
Major League Football or baseball and NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the question becomes, what happens here, John Holt's joining us, with the stadium? Quentin Lucas said that they want to get that figured out after the election. He said November, December. Now, you've had Jonathan Ketz kicking butt on this story for you guys, but I got to imagine if I'm John Sherman, I just got a playoff run under my belt. I got to capitalize on this thing with the stadium that I want.
It's interesting you raised that point. We were fortunate enough, Mr. Sherman joined me on what is it? Wednesday.
Did you get him? I was working all week on that. I couldn't get him. I tried my tail off, but that's because he was doing John Holt, which is fine. I understand it.
You just got to talk to the right people. I guess right now.
You got to tell me who the right people are. I thought I had the right people. Apparently not the right people.
The cool thing about Mr. Sherman is I think he doesn't mind the media. I think right now is just a very sensitive time for him. So we focused mainly on just the team, the turnaround. But I did ask him, I said, this energy, this excitement, does that help you? Does that give you some leverage? Does that sort of give you momentum, I think was the term I used, as you continue your discussions? And he really did not want to talk about it.
Well, I think that's why.
And he understood why I asked the question, but he handled it in the way I expected him to, and that was to say, well, we're working on that. We'll get to that. There's a time for that. Right now, we're just focusing on being the Royals and the playoffs. So.
Well, no, and I get it. And I kind of pitched my conversation more along the lines of let's talk stadium. But I get it. It makes sense to let the season play out and then capitalize on the stadium. But I do believe he's an underrated spokesperson for this whole thing, in the sense that he was not really out in front. They let a lot of other people do the talking back in the spring. And frankly, a lot of those people are highly and much more controversial people in this town, like, a Mayor Sly James, who I personally like, but he's just a more controversial figure as a politician than John Sherman would have been, being the voice for the stadium project. So I think more of him is better for the team going forward.
I think I agree. And the reason I say that is because I've had a chance to visit with him on several occasions. He is just a very nice man.
He's likable. He's humble.
Very likable. Very humble. He loves this town. He and his wife, Marty, are very supportive of so many philanthropic causes. And I think that story has not really gotten out there.
I agree.
I think nothing against Clark Hunt. He lives in Dallas, right? But they love the Chiefs. They love Kansas City. But John Sherman lives in Kansas City, in this market. And he wants baseball here, and he loves baseball here. His first date with his wife was at Kauffman Stadium, then Royals Stadium. He told me against the Yankees. He couldn't remember who won, so we left it at that. But, it worked. He called it a win. They've been married 39 years.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So I believe he's not going to move this team. But I think the more people get to know him, And again, David Glass, the Glass family, they were from Arkansas. Some of the family called Kansas City home, but John Sherman lives here. He's built his businesses here. He's had success here, and I think he wants the Royals to be successful here as well.
John Holt, Fox 4 on KCMO is here. We're going to take a break, come back, and dive into some of our local races. He does the show For the People. We've got 3 weeks to go until the election. They've got a lot of the big movers and shakers on, so we'll dive into some of these local elections with John Holt next on KCMO. John Holt is here from Fox 4. So we've got 3 weeks to go until the election. And, of course, For the People, if you are looking for some extended political coverage, we've got you covered on the radio side. But Fox 4's For the People, which you can watch on the web, fox4kc.com, or just set your DVR, is going to have a lot of the candidates on that we will have on this show. And this weekend, John, you've got, Prasanth Reddy from the 3rd District running against Sharice Davids. Now, we know that 2 years ago, that race turned out to be a blowout, which caught a lot of people off guard. How do you think that one's shaping up this year?
I thought Amanda Atkins had an opportunity last year, or 2 years ago, to close the gap, make a good run at it. This year's interesting. Now you have Sharice Davids fully entrenched in a purple county now, because let's face it, Johnson County is the bulk of the votes in the 3rd Congressional District. Yeah. The other thing, I guess, 2 years ago was that the district had been redrawn, remember? And it seemed to favor Amanda Atkins, and not at all, as it turned out. Prasanth Reddy is, I think, a solid candidate. He's certainly got good credentials. It's obviously he's not a politician. He's an oncologist, been involved in the lab side of it. I think Sharice Davids is a clear favorite here. I've been told that they've done some internal polling, the Reddy campaign has, and they're closing the gap, but a lot of work to do was the quote that was given to me. So, but interesting, Sharice Davids is using the playbook once again. Joint appearances are few and far between. None so far. They've tried to get scheduled debates. There was a scheduled forum that she had agreed to be a part of in Ottawa a couple nights ago.
Yeah, Wednesday night.
And she had asked for a rule change on questions from the audience, which they agreed to. And then she canceled literally hours before it began. Reddy and his crew went and were there. They did the empty chair thing. I remember, 6 years ago when she beat Kevin Yoder, I moderated a couple of forums that only Kevin appeared at. We did get her in a debate online. It was a digital debate.
I was there.
Right toward the end of that general election, which she ultimately won. But so I don't know if that's a signal that they are comfortable. She doesn't need to be out there. There is a forum coming up the Johnson County Post has scheduled that she has agreed to do, and the Reddy folks were made aware of it because she had accepted, I'm told, by the Reddy campaign. So there will perhaps be one, which I'm not sure the date on that, but so far they have not been able to get her to join them in a debate. She will join our show, I'm told. It's scheduled. We had Prasanth Reddy yesterday. It'll air Sunday morning. And then she's going to join us, I think, in a couple of weeks. She's scheduled to. And she's been on the show before.
Yeah.
And I hope she'll join us. We want to we call them candidate conversations. We invite both candidates to appear, and hopefully both agree.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. No, I hope so. But you're right. It's every cycle it kind of gets, it seems like, a little less and less from her on the media side.
Well, and isn't that true of all of the candidates, though? It's so hard to get candidates, particularly incumbents or those who are, in Missouri, for example, we've finally convinced Josh Hawley and Lucas Kuntz to get together. We know the dust-up at the state fair occurred, but they will be joining us for a debate. Halloween night of all nights.
Is that right?
Statewide on our Next Star stations. I'm going to be in St. Louis co-moderating that debate with Shirley Washington of Fox 2. It was 7 to 8 o'clock on that Halloween night. So I guess if you're trick-or-treating, set your DVR.
I will set the DVR because I can't miss trick-or-treating with the kids for the debate. I'm sorry, John.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I take advantage of them wanting to do that while you can, right? But in the past, efforts to get, for example, we've tried to get Kehoe and Quaid together. And they have met. They met at the Missouri Press Association, but not in a statewide broadcast. And that's what we were proposing, that, we'll do the debate. We can do it in St. Louis. We'll negotiate the rules with you. And so far, it just hasn't happened. There's just fewer of those kinds of things than even 4, 5, 6 years ago.
I totally agree. I mean, even look at the presidential cycle, right? I mean, debates, you got one for each, but that was it. I think that if you're ready in that campaign, you've got to hope that with it being a presidential year, it actually drives turnout for Donald Trump, maybe in some of the more rural counties. The low propensity voter, the data shows that's where actually Donald Trump is doing better than Kamala Harris. Right. And if you figure that helps you down the ticket, maybe that plays a role in the 3rd district, but it's still going to be very difficult for Reddy to win this thing.
I think so. He's obviously, she is a fundraising juggernaut as an incumbent. I think she has $2 million cash on hand, and he's just under $1 million, about $900,000. He is up on TV now. I saw a spot here recently on Fox 4. So that'll help. But name recognition is such a key, too.
It is. And incumbency's worth a lot.
It certainly is. And this area has shown that when you're an incumbent, it's yours to lose. Mm-hmm. Even in Johnson County, Dennis Moore was a Democrat. Even before Johnson County was as purple as it is. Yeah. Dennis Moore had name recognition and won multiple terms as a congressman in this district. So I think it's an uphill battle. I think you're right, though. Maybe the Trump voter gets out and that helps. If they're voting a straight ticket, right?
Yes,
that's the
if
key.
they're voting that's the key as well.
And the other key is independents or unaffiliated, because so far they've broken for Sharice Davids in past races.
So in the last couple minutes here, John Holt, what else are you looking at in this final 3-week stretch locally on the election front? I admit it doesn't feel like there's a lot of super tight races here that we're watching. So what are you looking at?
Well, I think the one thing that you don't hear much about, and it's difficult to cover, is the super majorities in Kansas and Missouri, and the efforts by Democrats not to control the House and Senate. That's not going to happen, but get rid of those super majorities. Laura Kelly, Democrat governor in Kansas, has her middle of the road pack. She is providing support to a slew of Democrats, which caught the ire of the Republicans because they said, "Hey, wait a minute! You said you would support, moderate Republicans," and of course she endorsed all and is providing support through that pack to Democrats. I think the number is 3 House seats, 2 Senates, or maybe it's the other way. They need to flip.
Yeah, and they're going to try to do it through Johnson County.
They're going to do it. Johnson County is ground zero for that. So that's something to watch to see if Laura Kelly can get rid of those supermajorities, because that sets the stage for battles over property tax. The Republicans, the House Speaker, Daniel Hawkins, has said that's where they're going next, is reducing property taxes. She said no. That's not an area. Budgeting, the Republicans want to start the budget process earlier. And also Medicaid expansion. It's coming back. It's going to be a part of the upcoming legislative session. And so if she can get rid of the supermajority and somehow find a way to get Medicaid expansion passed, it's veto-proof.
Tell me, John Holt, in the last 30 seconds, how you're feeling about your Jayhawks at 1-5 right now.
Well, as we were just discussing, I just got back from Phoenix, a very hot Tempe, Arizona. Saw the team lose to Arizona State again in the final seconds. We didn't see 6 losses, but we also didn't see, 86 wins for the Royals. So sort of take the bitter with the sweet on that front. But I love college football. I love the atmosphere. It's been interesting being in Kansas City. I've been to 2 games at Sporting KC at Children's Mercy Park. I haven't been to Arrowhead yet. I'm going to be there in a couple weeks. I've beat the rest of those games. I still believe in the direction of the program. I like Coach Leipold. I like, obviously, our Travis, our Goff, our athletic director, is making things happen on the stadium front. It's going to be gorgeous when they get that up, and that's a recruiting tool right there.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. Doesn't look like a bowl is going to happen, but still some fun games ahead, and looking forward to being out there.
I agree. I think it's a blip on the radar for what hopefully is a nice, long, successful tenure with Lance Leipold at the helm.
That's what we hope, right?
That's what I'm hoping
Until
for.
somebody comes along and tries to steal it.
Well,
right?
that's right. Just got to pony up, my man.
Yeah, let me see what I got in my checkbook here.
John Holt, appreciate you being here, my man.
Hey, man, good to see you.
All right, John Holt on KCMO Talk Radio. Great to have him on. We've got news coming up in 1 minute, our caller of the day, as well as we take you up until 10 o'clock. Ray Stevens then on KCMO.